Hello, welcome to math. All right, today we're going to learn how to evaluate expressions. Okay, so evaluating expressions is when you have variables inside of different problems, and it tells you what the variables equal, and you have to substitute those those values in for each variable. Okay, so let's start with this. So when we're evaluating expressions, we always want to use parentheses. We always want to substitute with parentheses. So we're going to remove the variable and plug in with parentheses, okay? And then after that, we're going to use the order of operations. So remember groupings first, and then exponents and radicals from left to right, multiply and divide from left to right, and add and subtract from left to right. Okay? All right, so the first one, what is the value of 5 parentheses a plus b minus 3 parentheses b plus c if a equals 4 and b equals 3 and c equals 2? Okay, so what do we do here? We're going to rewrite the problem. But every time I see a variable, I'm going to replace it with parentheses, okay? So then I say b, so I'm going to put another parentheses, and then I'm going to close that big parentheses that's in, and then I see it says minus 3, and then it says parentheses, and then it says b, so I'm going to put parentheses, and then plus c. And then c is, I'm going to replace with parentheses. There we go. Okay, so now I just plug in my numbers. So a equaled 4. So whenever I see an a, I'm going to plug in a 4. So 4 is going to go there. It says b equals 3. So 3 is going to go in this set of parentheses. And this set of parentheses was a b. And it says c equals 2. So I'm going to plug 2 in for my c spot. All right, so now I use my order of operations. First, I'm going to do groupings. So groupings means my parentheses in this situation, right? So in this one, I would do 4 plus 3. 4 plus 3 gives me 7. And then I can bring down the rest of my stuff. Be 5 minus 5. And then we have minus 3. And then we have parentheses. I could do this parentheses too. 3 plus 2 gives me 5, right? 5. Okay, so I'm done with my groupings. My next step is exponent radicals. There's no exponents or radicals. My next step is multiply or divide. We do have a multiply and divide. We have a multiply, 5 times 7. When a number's next to a parentheses, that means multiply. So 5 times 7 is 35. All right, and then I can also do this one, 3 times 5. 3 times 5 is 15. And I see there's a minus sign in between it, so I want to make sure I keep that there. And now 35 minus 15 equals 20. So 20 is our answer. All right, so when you evaluate expressions, you always want to plug in using parentheses, okay? And then we just follow the order of operations. What is the value of 3 parentheses x squared minus 4x when x equals 5? Let's try that one. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to rewrite my problem, but then I'm going to plug in my value of 5 whenever I see an x. So I see I have x, I'm going to put 5 inside my parentheses, and then I'm going to put squared, then minus 4 times 5, and then I'm going to close up my big parentheses. All right, so now I use order of operations. So first thing I want to do is groupings. Groupings is the first thing I want to do. So 5 squared would give me 25, and then I can bring around everything else. I'm still working inside these parentheses here. So 25 minus 4 times 5, I have to times before I could subtract. 4 times 5 is 20. So then I would have 25 minus 20, and 25 minus 20 is 5. So I simplified all of my parentheses, and I'm left with 5 inside that parentheses. I still have this 3 on the outside I can't forget about, so I brought it down here. So remember, when a number's touching a parentheses, that means multiply. So 3 times 5 gives me 15. That's my answer. What is the value of 2 parentheses 5 minus a close parentheses squared plus 7a? All right, so let's plug it in. So I'm going to rewrite it. 2 parentheses 5 minus a. All right, a equals 2. So I'm going to plug in 2, and I want to substitute with parentheses, and then squared, and then plus 7 times 2. All right, so I have to do inside my parentheses first. I have 5 minus 2, which is 3. So inside that parentheses is 3, and then I see that we also have a squared on the outside of that parentheses. So I have to do that next, because my next step after groupings is exponents and radicals. 3 squared would give me 9. And then I have a 2 out in front of that. And remember, when a number is in front of a parentheses, that means multiply. So 2 times 9 is 18. So I'm going to be with 18. And then I can also do 7 times 2, which is 14. And then I would just add those two together. 18 plus 14 gives me 32. And that would be my final answer. The reason why we substitute with parentheses, let's say it had like 7a, like that one. So 7a means multiply. So if you just plugged in the number, like for this example it was 2, right? So if I just plugged in 2, that looks like 72. But that's not what I want you to do. I want you to do multiply 7 times 2, right? So if you put the parentheses around it, then that shows that it's multiplication, right? Another reason why you want to use parentheses is when you're squaring a negative number or doing anything with a negative number, it shows you that that negative goes with that number and it keeps it together inside this parentheses. Okay? All right, let's go on to the next one. We got like 2 more we're going to do here together. All right, I see I got 2 parentheses c plus 5 plus 2c squared. So let me rewrite my problem. And then whenever I see c, it says c equals -1. So I'm going to plug in -1 in for c, and then plus 5, and then plus 2, and then I see another c there. So I get -1 in my parentheses, and then squared. All right, order of operations tells me groupings first, so I need to do this here first. -1 plus 5 would be 4. And then I would bring down my 2, and I can actually bring down everything else because there's no other groupings. All right, my next step, order of operations, is exponents and radicals. I have an exponent right here, -1 squared. So -1 squared is 1. So now I'm left with 2 times 1 there. Alright, so my next step on my order of operations is multiply or divide. And I got multiplies here, right? So 2 times 4 gives me 8. 2 times 1 gives me 2. And then finally I can do my addition and subtraction. 8 plus 2 equals 10. That's my final answer, 10. Alright, so this right here is another reason why we want to use parentheses. Okay? So when we square a number, like this right here, alright, when we square a number, if I just plugged in -1 and put squared, that's going to give me -1 as an answer. If I put it in parentheses, squared, that's going to give me a +1 as an answer. So the reason why is this -1 squared up here, that means that it's -1 times 1, because the squared is only on the 1. It's not on the negative. When it's like this one down here on the bottom, here, -1's in parentheses, that means that it's -1 times -1. So that's because the squared's on the negative and on the 1. This one is correct. This one is not correct. Okay, so you always want to use parentheses when you're plugging in stuff, because if you type this in a calculator, it gives you a totally different answer than this one. 1 is totally different than -1, and that could prevent you from getting the right answer. Okay? All right, last one. Y squared plus 2z plus 3 parentheses x minus 8.5 when x equals 5 and y equals 10 and z equals -2. All right, so I'm going to rewrite it again. All right, so y they said was 10. So I'm going to plug in 10 with parentheses and put squared plus 2, and then it says z. Z is -2. So I'm going to put -2 and then close out my big parentheses, and then plus 3, open parentheses, and then it says x. I'm going to plug in 5 for x. I'm going to plug that in with parentheses, and then minus 8.5. Okay? All right, so order of operations tells me groupings first. So I see my first grouping here. Inside this grouping, should I do exponent, add, or multiply first? Well, I want to do my exponent first. 10 squared gives me 100. 10 times 10. All right, I'm still working inside this parentheses here. Now do I want to add or do I want to multiply? I want to multiply. 2 times -2 would be -4. So I would have 100 plus a -4. If you're adding a -4, I just brought this plus down, right? If you're adding a -4, that's the same thing as subtraction. So I really don't even need to write that plus. All right, so 100 minus 4 would get me 96. All right, I have another set of parentheses on this side, right? So I have to do this. 5 minus 8.5. What would that give me? That would give me a negative 3.5. A negative 3.5. All right, that's all this inside the parentheses. And then I have a 3 out in front. And I know whatever I get here, I'm going to add to this first one. But when a number's next to a parentheses, that means multiply, right? So I want to multiply that first before I add it together. So if I multiply 3 times negative 3.5, I get plus negative 10.5. This plus just came from up here. I brought it down, right? If I'm adding a negative, once again, that's the same thing as just subtraction, so I can get rid of that plus sign. So what is 96 minus 10.5? That gives me 85.5. 85.5. 85 and 5/10, or 85 and a half. Okay? All right, so that's evaluating expressions. Big key takeaway is when you substitute numbers in, you always want to plug them in using parentheses. There's multiple reasons why, especially when you're squaring a number. That's very important. It also shows you that when a number's next to a variable, that means multiply. It doesn't mean that, like the example I showed earlier, like when I plugged a in for, or 2 in for a, and it's not doesn't mean it's 72 up here, right? It means that it's 7 times 2. Okay, so we always want to substitute with parentheses, and then after that, we want to use the order of operations, and we learned the order of operations last class. All right, if you ever have any questions, please ask a teacher, and I'll see you next time. Bye.